Hello everyone, and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. In Destiny 1, some of, if not the absolute best weapons in the game came from the raids. Things like Fatebringer, Black Hammer, Quillem's Terminus, Hunger of Crota. These were all top tier weapons, and they all came from the top tier PvE activities, raids. And honestly, this is how it should be. The most difficult activities should give the absolute best loot. I don't care what anybody says. And before those solo casual players go running down to my comment section to argue with me, bro, LFG it. Like, if you want the stuff, LFG. Like, at a certain point, what are you fighting for? I'm not gonna get into this. I'm not doing it. You guys aren't gonna bait me. I'm not gonna get into it. Anyway. The raids in Destiny 2 have had somewhat of a loot problem, in the sense that the loot that you can get from the raids in Destiny 2 isn't necessarily unique to that raid. So, for example, something like a Conspirator Scout Rifle from the Leviathan. On paper, it's a really good scout rifle. It does void damage, it's 200 RPM, it shoots in full auto, and has Dragonfly. But that's not going to beat something like, say, Vouchsafe, that you can get from the Dreaming City, that's also void, also 200 RPM, and you can probably roll it with full auto and Dragonfly too. So there's no reason to go grind the raid to get that specific weapon. So, taking that into consideration, I wanted to compile a list of raid weapons that are worth grinding for. These are weapons that either are the top weapon in their archetype, or it's easier to get a weapon with this specific role by doing a raid as opposed to going out and doing it elsewhere. A lot of these are going to be curated roles, meaning fixed roles on year 2 raids that come fully masterworked, because the curated roles do offer a little something extra most of the time, something that you can't get unless it is the curated role. So without further ado, let's look at all the raids in chronological order and which weapons from them are the best. We will start with the Leviathan. The Leviathan was a year 1 raid, and it dropped fixed roll weapons. This is back before we had random rolled stuff in Destiny 2, so every weapon that you get here will have the same perk set no matter how many times you get it. Now, back in year 1, the Leviathan had the best weapons in the game, man. Conspirator, Inaugural Address, It Stared Back, all top tier weapons, all the best in the game. But now, there's only a couple that I would even consider putting on this list. So let's go ahead and look at those. First off, we have Midnight Coup. Of course, it's on this list. It is a 150 archetype hand cannon that comes with a static roll of Outlaw Rampage. The only other hand cannon currently in the game that can roll with 150 rate of fire and Outlaw Rampage is going to be the Spare Rations hand cannon that can drop from either Reckoning or Gambit Prime, which, at the time of recording this video, the drop rates for said hand cannon are complete garbage. So if you want a 150 hand cannon with Outlaw Rampage, Midnight Coup is sitting there with pretty high drop rates. Very easy to get. Next up, for the Leviathan weapon sets, we have Alone as a God, which is truthfully one of the best PvP snipers in the game. It is a rapid-fire frame, meaning it shoots 140 rounds per minute. That is the hot frame for PvP at the moment. It comes with snapshot sights as a guaranteed perk, fits in your kinetic slot, and has some of the highest base aim assist for any sniper in the game. In addition to that, as if that wasn't good enough, it also has the lowest zoom scope in the game, which makes it really good for close quarter sniping, which is very good in PvP. I'm going to go ahead and throw Inaugural Address on this list as well. It is an adaptive frame pulse rifle that does void damage and comes with Outlaw Kill Clip guaranteed. Now, there are other pulse rifles out there that are going to outclass this thing, absolutely. But if you're in a situation where you need to do void damage and you need a workhorse weapon, this is it. This thing is really good to have in your collections to just be able to pull out whenever you need it and dismantle it when you're done. I would definitely recommend this one. The last Leviathan weapon that I'm going to put on this list is the Legend of Icarus. Now this one, unlike the previous 3, has a direct path. You can complete a quest and you're guaranteed to get the Legend of Icarus. This thing is a power shotgun, currently the only power shotgun in the game, unless you consider tractor cannon, which, let's be real, kind of not. But anyway, Legend of Icarus hits like a fucking semi. It is really, really powerful, and I can see them buffing and nerfing a lot of things next season, and honestly, I feel like it's going to be Icarus's time to shine in Shadowkeep. I think this is going to be one of the top damaging power weapons in the game, so I would recommend getting it. Moving on to our next raid, we have the Eater of Worlds. Now, there are only 2 unique weapons that come from Eater of Worlds, and honestly, neither of them are going to be top tier. So when it comes to weapon farming, I wouldn't do this one. I would say go ahead and still do Eater of Worlds if you've never done it, because it is a fun little raid. But as far as loot goes, it has Telesto Catalyst, and that is about it. And everything that I just said about Eater also applies to Spire of Stars. Only 2 unique weapons come from this, and they're both pretty bad. Spire, however, does have the Sleeper Simulant Catalyst as well as the Luxurious Toast emote, but you don't actually have to complete this raid to get either of those. I got the emote from the opening encounter, and I got the Sleeper Catalyst from the jumping puzzle. So you don't actually need to finish this one, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend finishing this one. I personally hate this raid. This is my least favorite raid in the game, but that's a topic for another video. Let's move on to Last Wish. So for Last Wish, we are mainly going to be focusing on fixed rolled weapons. And I'm going to start with the curated Nation of Beasts hand cannon. This is an arc energy hand cannon and will only drop from completing the Morgeth encounter. That is the only time in this raid that you can get the curated version of this hand cannon. You can get a random rolled version elsewhere, but the curated version only comes from Morgeth. It comes with Outlaw and Dragonfly, and when you pop a Dragonfly spec on this bad boy, it is actually really fun. It's one of the better hand cannons in the game at the 140 archetype, and when it comes to energy hand cannons, it probably is the best energy hand cannon in the game, with Kindled Orchid maybe giving it a little bit of a run for its money. But nonetheless, it's a solid weapon and would definitely recommend having it. Next, we have another pretty good PvP sniper. Now, the curated roll for this is not that great. It comes with rapid hit kill clip, which, yeah, that is a desirable roll, but for me personally, I'm looking for something more like rapid hit and maybe snapshot sights or something like that. But the real appeal for the Supremacy is that it is a 140 archetype kinetic sniper, but it's year 2. So unlike Alone as a God, you can pop a year 2 weapon mod on this thing to make it better. So altogether, it's really good, and the good thing about this one is you can get it without actually doing the raid. Just go do the chest cheese a couple of times and you'll probably get one eventually. And our final Last Wish raid weapon is going to be 1000 Voices. This thing is a fusion rifle, kinda, that fits in your power slot that does massive damage. This thing is only going to get better next season because there is a catalyst for it that's going to give you more ammo, and more ammo means more damage, and more damage means more fun. Like I said previously in the video, they're probably going to be nerfing a bunch of things that we use right now, so next season I can see 1000 Voices being a go-to power weapon for a lot of activities. But even now, in the current sandbox, this thing is still a top-tier weapon and would definitely recommend getting it. This thing only drops from opening the very final chest in the encounter after everything is done, so good luck. It took me 34? No, this was 36. 36 runs before I got a 1000 Voices. The next raid weapons that we're going to take a look at are from Scourge of the Past. Now, Scourge of the Past has a pretty shallow loot pool, having only 4 legendary weapons plus 1 exotic, but the legendaries and the exotic are kinda good. So, for the first one that we're going to take a look at is the curated threat level shotgun. Now, the curated threat level shotgun, I believe, only drops from the opening encounter. After completing it, you can get it from the chest. I know that threat level itself can drop from any encounter with random rolls, but the curated roll, I'm pretty sure, only comes from that opening chest and possibly the final chest. I'm not 100% on that one. But anyway, the threat level is basically a kinetic Icarus, coming with Grave Robber, Trench Barrel, and full auto. Keeping in mind that because it does not do elemental damage, it does 5% more damage than a base Icarus on a non-shielded enemy. It's really good to have, and it's a really sought-after weapon. It's basically a must-have at this point. My next Scourge weapon is going to be the curated Bellowing Giant Rocket Launcher. Now, this is very similar to Bad Omens, only it does just a tiny bit more damage than the curated Bad Omens that you can buy from Drifter. This one is going to come down to preference. I just happen to prefer Bellowing Giant over Bad Omens. Honestly, they're almost interchangeable. I mean, they're basically the same with the tracking module, the cluster bombs. They're both year 2, so you can throw a boss spec on it. They both do void damage. It comes down to preference. I just prefer this one. But in any case, it is one of the better weapons from Scourge of the Past. And for the final weapon from Scourge of the Past, I'm going to go ahead and throw on Anarchy. Anarchy is the exotic drop that can potentially come from the very final chest of Scourge of the Past. It took me 56 completions to get this fucking thing. But it is really fun. Grenade launchers are hot right now, and this is one that kind of does passive damage, meaning you shoot 2 grenades at an enemy, then swap to something else and deal DPS, and this will continue to do damage to the enemy over time. It's really handy to have, and with the impending spike grenade nerf coming next season, I feel like Anarchy is going to be even better. So I would definitely recommend grinding for this one if you are able. It is going to be something that you definitely want to have in your collections. So on to our final raid in Destiny 2, that is Crown of Sora. Crown of Sora is a lot like Scourge of the Past, both in size and in the depth of the loot pool. There are only 4 legendary weapons that can come from this raid, as well as 1 exotic, just like Scourge, and both raids take about the same amount of time to complete. Honestly, they're both pretty easy. I would say give them a shot. But nonetheless, Crown of Sora does have some unique weapons to it, and they are worth having, so let's take a look. The curated Emperor's Courtesy shotgun is one of 2 shotguns in the game right now that can come with 1-2 punch. And if you are unaware, 1-2 punch is currently the most broken fucking thing that we might have ever had in this game. It is seriously stupid on a hunter with combination blow. Anyway, this curated roll only drops from Crown of Sora's jumping puzzle encounter. It will not drop from any other encounter. However, the random rolled version will drop from any encounter, but the curated version only comes from the jumping portion. 1-2 punch is stupid on an Arc Strider Hunter, but even if you are a Titan or a Warlock, 1-2 punch is still really fun to use, and I would still recommend grinding for this bad boy. Next up, we have a high-impact machine gun known as Bane of Sora. Now, you don't want the roll that I have, you don't want any random rolls. With this, you absolutely want the curated roll. The curated roll only drops from the opening encounter of Crown of Sora, and it comes with high-caliber rounds, Outlaw, and Dragonfly. And to my knowledge, it is the only machine gun in the entire game that can roll with Dragonfly and Outlaw. So this thing is really good. This thing is going to be an absolute ad clear monster, and honestly, it's the thing that I want most from any raid. I've gotten curated rolls for every weapon in every raid so far, except this one. Pop a Dragonfly spec mod on this bad boy, and you have an ad clear monster. And the last raid weapon that I'm going to recommend in this video is going to be Taraba, which is the exotic drop that has a chance of dropping from the final chest in Crown of Sora. Now, admittedly, this thing is kinda underwhelming right now. I mean, for a submachine gun, it's really good. But for a general purpose weapon, it's kinda meh. The only reason I'm putting it on this list is because I'm really hoping that next season it gets some kind of a buff, and from what I've seen on Reddit and stuff from the Bungie devs, it looks like it's something that they are aware that we're disappointed in and want to fix. With it being a raid exotic, it needs to be stronger, and I can see them giving this some kind of a buff. And if they do, this could potentially be a really good boss DPS weapon. Yes, even for a submachine gun. So that's why I'm including it on this list, and that's why I'm recommending it. And there you have it, guys. Those are the raid weapons currently in the game that I would recommend everybody go out and get their hands on. These things are really good, and like I said, they're probably the best in their archetype in a lot of cases. So that's going to bring this video to an end. Drop a comment in the box below. Let me know what your current favorite weapon from a raid is, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. If you enjoyed this one, click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.